Hey everybody, Chris here. So Sonicware are back with a new limited edition Liven called the Lofi-6. This is based on the work that was done on the Lofi-12 sampler that came out a little while ago, but this time there's a shift in focus towards retro lo-fi. This is achieved by sampling only at 6 kHz, which doubles the capacity of the samples, but also rounds off the top end, giving it a smoother tone. To compensate for the lack of high frequencies, there have been some tweaks to the features. So the 12-bit mode has been replaced by a valve amp sim, which brightens the top end, and then within each track effect we can also add a maximizer, which we can really boost those top ends as well. It's also sporting a nice new 1950s inspired colour scheme. It includes all the other features from the Lofi-12, including everything that was added in the version 2 update, like the drum and chop modes. So if you want to deep dive into what these samplers can do, go back and check out the full-length Lofi-12 videos. But for now, let's just have a little quick start and see what we can do with this new sound. So just to explain what I mean by retro lo-fi, let's check out some of the preset patterns. So this is Dixie, which is a Dixie jazz inspired pattern, on pattern 1. As you can hear, it's got quite a long phrase there. That's just one single sample that's been recorded in, because our sample frequency has changed to 6 kHz, our sample length has gone up, so we've got 8 seconds of sampling on each of the samples. Let's try something else. As you can hear, it's got this kind of late night warmth to it. Let's try one of the ones I made. So when I was working on patterns on the Lofi-6, I kind of started to think about it in terms of like a retro-futurism kind of idea, where maybe you had a sampler that was made just using valves, or something like a Metronome where it was just mechanical tape and it had this kind of real degradation to the sound. So that's sort of the approach I took. Let's try another one. So that's just something nice and simple, but it's just got that warmth to it that we keep talking about. So let's sample something in and we can hear that new lo-fi tone in action. So I've started a new pattern here and I've got my phone rigged up with a couple of samples on it. So I'm going to choose an empty sound right at the top of a bank and sample. And so I'm just going to play that and we can preview it. So we've got quite a nice bright guitar sound. And then we can hit function and sampling here. And then when we play it, we see a threshold preview. And then if we go record, we can sample it in. And then when we press one of the keys, we've got the same sample, but it's got that kind of rounded tone to it. So we can press OK and then OK again, and that will save into that slot. So I've also got some drums here. So one of the things about the Lofi-12 and the Lofi-6 is that it has a noise gate on the input. Some people were finding when they were recording sounds on the Lofi-12 that the transients were cut off because the noise gate wasn't opening fast enough. So one of the new features is that we can turn that noise gate off. So if we go into settings, we can go past the auto record level and the record source and find the noise gate, and then we can just turn this off. This is to ensure that that transient will be captured. You might hear a bit of buzzing depending on what devices you've got attached, but you can be then sure that those transients will be captured. So I'm going to select a different sample and then do the same thing with this drum sample. So record. And there we go. As you can hear, we've lost quite a lot of the top end, but we'll come to that in a minute. So I'll just save that in. So now I'll just get rid of my phone and I'll program some stuff in using those samples. So let's get those drums sorted first. So when I go into track 4, I'm going to pick the last bank and then the sound 15, and then that's the drum loop we recorded. I'm going to go into drum mode. This will evenly divide it into 16 parts, which is now the default on the Lofi-6. So Each one of these keys is a slice of the drums. First thing I'm going to do is change the note length. I'm going to change this to a quarter note, so that each step is equal to a quarter note. I'm going to turn on the auto step feature here. I'm going to record, and then I'm just going to play those keys in. And this will now play that loop. So one thing we can do to brighten up the sound is by putting on the tube mode. This adds a sort of tube simulation over the entire mix. So if we turn that on whilst it's playing, just subtly adds a little bit of top end. But a more drastic move would be to select the FX and load this maximizer. Actually, it's already selected, but it's turned down. So what we can do is we can crank this. So this is the amount of enhancement that we're getting, and then this knob will control the tone. So we can very quickly put a lot of the top end back in again. So now let's turn our attention to that guitar. So I'm going to find that sample. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to use the drum or chop modes to distribute that across the keys, because again, this is a nice long phrase. So I'm going to use the chop mode, go to note, turn that to a quarter, and just press record. We don't need to do it like that. We could just play these in any order we want, but I just want to get this down quickly. So let's just mute that drum for a second. And a little release. And again, we can use different effects to add a bit of brightness to the top if we wanted to. Maximizer is the default, or we can use a bit crush. What also helps is if we turn on the reverb, maybe the plate reverb's nice and bright, turn up the amount sent to that reverb, turn the reverb up. That's going to get us that brightness again. So yeah, let's save this pattern down, and then I'll show you how to program in bassline to go with it. So one of my favourite sounds on the Lo-Fi 12 and the Lo-Fi 6 is this double bass sound. You can find this in the instrument bank, and it's on the Lo-Fi 6, it's the very first sample. So I'm going to change the length of this pattern. I'm going to make it 64 steps so that it's 4 pages long. So change the length to 64. And then I'm going to turn on the metronome. Now this is slightly changed since the Lo-Fi 12. It more closely matches the Texture Lab. So we turn the metronome on and off with this button, and we change the settings in here. So I'm going to go into here and turn the volume of the metronome up, and then turn it on, and then we can quickly turn it on and off without having to turn it up and down. So I'm just going to play in a bass line. Turn the metronome off. So again, we can brighten that a little bit if we want to. We can go into the effects for this channel, so let's just turn those off. And then maybe add a little tiny bit of distortion. So now we've recorded our bass, we've got much more of a full mix. As we switch that tube mode on and off, it's going to be a lot more obvious, so I'll let the pattern play and I'll just turn that on. So as you can hear, it's bringing out the tops of those brushed snares and a bit of the guitar in the mix. So just one last tiny little difference. The Lo-Fi 6 comes with the same overlay as the Lo-Fi 12. There's just one function that won't do anything, and that is the 24 kilohertz button here. that flicks between 12 and 24 kilohertz sampling. The Lofi-6 is purely 6 kilohertz, so that won't do anything, but everything else on the overlay is exactly the same. So I really hope that helped to explain what the Lofi-6 is all about and the kind of tone you can expect to get out of it. Like I say though, it is a limited edition version, so there are only a few hundred available. Please go and see Sonicware's website if you want to get details on how to get your hands on one. Again, thank you very much for watching, and please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers.